Hey, welcome back to my channel. Ed Padgett here. Today I'm going to talk about what you should do if you tear or strain your calf. Now this is a common injury in runners or older adults who have started a new activity. But what I've noticed is there is one big mistake that everyone makes when rehabbing their calf, and this makes the rehabilitation process last longer and stops you returning to the thing you love for a longer time. So I'm going to tell you exactly what that is and how to avoid it. All right, let's first start by looking at the anatomy of the calf. Interestingly, the calf is actually two main muscles, the gastrocnemius and the soleus. Now the gastroc actually attaches above the knee joint. It has two heads and then comes down towards the Achilles and attaches in the common tendon or the Achilles tendon. The soleus lays below that, and it's a one joint muscle that goes from the back of the tibia and a little bit of the interosseous membrane, the fibula, to the common tendon as well. So between them, they can control the way the ankle moves, sort of forwards and backwards, or if the muscle is being used above the knee joint, it can actually control the way the knee moves as well. Now this is interesting because if there's a problem in the calf, it is worth looking at the way the foot and ankle move, but also the hip. The hip can actually control the way the calf is strained, but also the calf can actually control the way the hip moves. So with that in mind, I have some exercises that can show you how to stretch your hip and move your hip. So I'll link those in the description below. I also have some great foot exercises, but today we're going to concentrate mainly on the ankle. Most commonly, the tear happens where the muscle joins the tendon. This is the weakest point in the calf complex. It can happen on the inside, the medial side, or it can happen on the outside, which is the lateral side. It doesn't matter which side, the rehab is going to cover both. Now, to assess the severity of the injury, you might need to see a professional, and they can probably palpate or touch that area. Sometimes you can actually feel a little dent where the muscle has been pulled away from the calf, or they can use an ultrasound as well to image it and see what exactly is going on. It doesn't really matter if you don't see a professional. If the pain is local to the area of that musculo-tendinous junction and hurts when you use it, you can probably assume you've strained it or torn some of the muscles there. All right, well, let's think about the rehab of that area. So we're going to start with getting some mobility, then strength, and then some endurance. Those three factors are always important when rehabbing a muscle. So the mobility is crucial because when an injury is healing, the collagen matrix that is laid down goes a little bit haphazard. But once you put stress or a little bit of tension into the muscles, it actually realigns that collagen matrix and the muscle fibers to be in a straight line. And that's what we want. We want all the muscle fibers pointing in a straight line. And so that's key to start with, is getting a little bit of stretch in there to show the muscles the correct alignment, but not overdoing it. So I'm going to show you two ways you can do that. Okay, the first stretch I'm going to show you looks like a classic calf stretch, but we put a little bit extra into it. Let's say this is the leg that I've injured. I'm going to put that behind me here. I'm going to get a little stretch into the calf. Now from here, I'm just going to move my hips forwards and backwards. And that movement puts a little bit of strain into the muscles, helps realign those fibers. But then what I want to do is move the hips left and right as well. Because this muscle is definitely a three-dimensional muscle and needs to be moved into 3 dimensions. Lastly, I'm going to move my pelvis. I'm looking down at my pelvis, imagine it's like a steering wheel. I'm going to move it inwards and outwards like this. All right, this is very easy for the calf to be able to work with this. So we can make it a little bit harder by turning the foot inwards and repeating those movements forward, backwards, side to side, rotate, rotate. Or we can move it outwards if we want to stretch the outside of the lateral calf a bit more. So rotating the foot inwards does the inside, rotating the foot outwards does the outside. Now let's just say the calf feels pretty good like that and we want to up that stretch a little bit. We want to progress it. Well, we can take this knee up and off each time we do it. So it goes forwards and backwards, and then for the left and right we can reach towards like an imaginary baseboard in my case, but if you're doing this against the wall, it'd be the baseboard. And then lastly, bring the knee up to parallel to the ground and then move the hips into rotation. So we're getting an active stretch, which is going to help realign those muscle fibers and get the blood flow into there. But that's for the gastroc, the muscle on the outside. So we also need to be able to do something for the deeper muscle, the soleus. So in this one, we're going to get in the same position, and we're going to start by thinking about 3 directions. So if 12 o'clock is in front of me, 1 o'clock is off to the right, and 11 o'clock is off to the left, I'm going to move my knee in those 3 directions. This time, the front knee is the one we're working on, the front calf. So I'm going 3 directions. Now, from a different angle, it looks like this. Going out a little bit, forwards, and then in. Out, forwards, in. And that's going to start stimulating that deeper calf muscle. Then we want to say, well, how can we progress that? How can we make it a bit more challenging? Well, we're going to use the same principle of those 3 different directions, but we're going to move the other leg like we did with the calf, with the gastroc stretch. Right, so here's the leg I'm moving, and I'm going to imagine I'm on a clock face. 12 o'clock is in front of me. This is the leg now that I'm testing, or strengthening, or stretching, all 3 of the above. So I'm going to go across to 11, forward to 12, out to 3, and then here's the difficult part. I'm actually going to open my hips up, let my knee come towards you, and go out to sort of 4 or 5 o'clock with my foot. Now, I don't need to touch each time, but I can. So a good way to start is by touching like this through this little sequence of movements, and then to make it harder, you actually take your foot off the ground with no touch. Now this becomes a stretch and strengthen at the same time. All right, so with those 2 exercises, we've progressed from a stretch to a little bit of a strengthen, but now we can get a bit more focused on the strengthening before we get to endurance. So now we're going to use a more traditional stretch that you may have seen before, but we're going to try and add a little bit of a 3-dimensional aspect to it. So let's say it's my left calf that I want to strengthen. I'm going to put my hand up against the wall for stability, and I can use 2 feet to go up, and then 1 to go down. 2 to go up, 1 to go down. And that's because the concentric phase can be a little bit harder for the muscle, but the eccentric phase actually recruits usually a little bit more of the muscle, and you're stronger at the eccentric phase. The eccentric phase actually also helps rehab the tendons. So from your point of view, you're going to go 2 feet up, 1 foot down. Now I'm on the edge of a step here, so I can actually take the ankle through a better range of motion. Now once I can do that easily, I'll take this foot up and away completely, and I can just use the 1 leg for strengthening. But I'm only doing that in 1 plane of motion, so I want to make it a little bit more challenging for my calf. I'm going to turn my foot outwards. So I turn 45 degrees thereabouts to you, so to my left. And that challenges one aspect of the calf, and then I can turn it inwards, keeping my hips pointing this way. And that's another aspect of the calf. So we're getting the 2 different heads working by using different angles in that particular strengthening exercise. To make those exercises more challenging, we'd simply add a weight. But don't be shy on the weights, because when you're running, they've estimated that the force that goes through your calf is actually 5 to 7 times more, sometimes even 10 times more than what it is when you're walking. So this little 5-pound dumbbell is more for an illustration, but you really want to be doing this with maybe 60-70% of your body weight, going up and down, adding in a lot more resistance, and doing it with the foot in and the foot out. Now this is where people tend to make their mistake. Maybe they can do the weights 10 times 3 sets. That's a good amount. Maybe they actually do lift 70% of their body weight. Maybe they are moving their foot in 3D, but they haven't added in endurance. You see, the calf is an interesting muscle. Because it's multi-joint, it moves econcentrically. That means one part of it is moving eccentrically, i.e. lengthening under load, and the other part of it is contracting, shortening under load. And this means it has to tolerate a lot of different forces, and it has to do that over and over and over again when you're running or playing sports. And so the next piece is to add endurance. Now, first way I would do that is by skipping. Now, I'm not going to show you me skipping, you don't need to see that, but essentially if you can skip on your toes on one leg, especially the injured leg, for let's say 10 minutes, you can probably think about going back to running. But if you can't do that, then do not run. And that is the key. Most people go back to running too soon, and they end up with a chronic calf strain. Now let's say skipping maybe is too hard for you. You think you can run, you try the skipping, you realize actually there's still a little bit of pain there, you don't have the endurance yet. Well, let's wind that back slightly. You can actually do what I call a foot core exercise. And that's simply going up onto the tiptoes of the foot that's affected and then moving the other leg forwards and backwards. Maybe you touch in front, maybe you touch behind, or maybe you touch in both. Left and right, and then rotating and rotating. Now you can see my heel is off the ground the whole time I'm doing this. I actually have a video of this which I'll link in the description below as well, just purely foot core exercise, because there's different progressions. You can touch in front but not behind, touch in front, not behind, or no touch with any of the movements. All right, so you go through a foot core matrix. Now things are starting to get a little bit stronger. We want to put in some recall into there. We want to put in some jumping. So we're going to do a 2-foot jumping matrix to start with. What that means is you're going to jump forwards and backwards, what we call the sagittal plane, side to side, and then rotate, rotate. So very simply, you're going to go forwards and backwards. You're going to go left and right, and then you're going to rotate and rotate. And this is particularly useful for those reaction sports like tennis or pickleball, which seems to be a craze at the moment. Any sport where you're reacting to a ball or to another person's movement. But that's using 2 calves to do that. So now we want to emphasize the injured side. And the way you do that is you can start on 2 feet and jump forward onto 1 foot and back onto 2 feet. You can go through that whole matrix doing the same thing. Or you can switch that up and go from 1 foot to 2 feet. This is a coordination challenge. So 1 foot to 2 feet. 1 foot to 2 feet. So whatever combination you want, you're changing from the 2 feet original movement to a 1 foot movement, and eventually you're going to finish with 1 foot matrix the whole way, forwards and backwards, okay? So this is similar to skipping. It's going to be a similar sort of challenge. Just going to go forwards and backwards with the injured side, left and right with the injured side, and then rotate both ways with the injured side. Now if you can do that, and you can do that for a long series of reps, let's say you're doing about 5 minutes, and then you progress to the skipping for 10-15 minutes, then you are ready to go back to running. But don't run before you can do all those things, otherwise you risk turning your calf injury into a chronic injury and being out for a long, long time. I'm going to wrap this video up now, and if you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, but also click on that notification bell and send my channel to a friend who you think will use and enjoy this content as well. Thank you so much for doing those things. Your support makes a huge difference. Also, you may know that I help people recover from illness and injury using specific exercises and lifestyle medicine. Now, if you're wondering whether or not I can help you, feel free to book a call with me and we can explore whatever the issue is. Maybe you've had a blood test that has shown high cholesterol, or maybe you're not sleeping properly and performing right at work or in sports. I can take you through a full whole body approach, a full lifestyle medicine approach, and coach you to be the best you can be. So there's a link in the comments below or a link in the description below. Just click that, book a call with me or my assistant, and we can find out whether or not we can help you.